Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Vihari Manava Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paramacharya also Teta Satashi Shimad His Divine Grace Abhaya Chalana Bhaktavedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananda Kopti Vaishnava Vrind Ki Jai Namacharya Shidahayla Stahu Kajai. Rim Se Gaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shidwaita Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Kajai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Gopinath Sayam Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Kijai. Vrindavanam Kijai Maturam Kijai. Jagadadasami Kijai Yamudamai Kijai. Shimali Lasidevi Kijai Savaveda Bhakta Vrinda Kijai. Gaur Parimalanda Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shi Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Bol. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Rudre Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swamini Chiramani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Vicharni Nivashesha Shunyavadi Pasyachya Dejatarni. So, because we just started reading from the first canto, 12th chapter, text 23, we're going to do this verse, not responsively over again, but I'm going to start reading the verse again, just myself this time, because we just got like 1 or 2 paragraphs through the purport, and it's quite a lengthy purport, so I think it's very important that we touch upon all the points in the book. In the verse. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'm just going to read the Sanskrit again, and then we'll go on to the translation, and then we'll continue with the purport. So, Patamahi Samasamye Prasade Girisho Pama Ashraya Sarva Bhutadam Yatha Devo Ramashrayaha. So the translation is, this child will be like his grandfather Yudhisthira, or Brahma, in equanimity of mind. He will be munificent like the Lord of Kailasa Hill, Shiva. And he will be the resort of everyone, like the Supreme Personality of Godhead Narayan, who is even the shelter of the Goddess of Fortune. So, Om Gana Timidanda Shagadan Shana Shalakaya. Jakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai. So we actually just got a little bit through the purport, because I was talking about how sometimes the Acharyas have different opinions, if everybody remembers this, about different secondary points, not about Siddhanta or Tattva. This is what we started. So let me just start the purport again. Mental equanimity refers both to Maharaj Yudhisthira and Brahma, the grandfather of all living beings. According to Sridhar Swami, the grandfather referred to is Brahma. For those of you who don't know what's going on in this verse, actually, some of you weren't there the other day. This is referring to Maharaj Parikshit. And Maharaj Parikshit's qualities are being described by the astrologers, who will say, this is what the child will be like. Because expert astrologers, Kovida, they can actually ascertain the nature of someone. And interestingly enough, someone's name was given according to his qualities. It's really interesting. For example, Parikshit, who is being named here, means the examiner, because he is always looking for Krishna. That's very similar to this verse in the Chatu Shloki. Avritavatam naputyeta tatviyeta chatmini tadvidyat atmano mayamita. No, that's not that verse. No, not that verse. Etavat eva vigyasa tattva vigyasana anvire vyafire kabhyam yadshat sarvatra sarvadam. That we should always be looking for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's one of the Chatushloki verses. So, Parikshit Maharaj is named according to that. And you'll find that basically everybody is named according to the qualities that they're going to have later on in life. Yudhishthira means one who is fixed in battle. Yudhishthira. And even Durvasa Muni is called Durvasa Muni because he's a Muni who has a bad temper. It's basically Dur, bad, Vasa, face, temper, you know. So, it's interesting how expert the astrologers were, or Duryodhana, or Dhritarashtra, or all these different names were actually given according to one's guna and later on karma. Karma means activities, but guna means one's qualities. So anyway, we'll continue. But according to Vishwanath Chakravarti, the grandfather's Maharaj Yudhishthira himself, in both cases the comparison is equally good, because both of them are recognized representatives of the Supreme Lord. And both of them have to maintain mental equanimity, being engaged in welfare work for the living being. Any responsible executive agent at the top of administration has to tolerate different types of onslaughts from the very person for whom he works. It's interesting. In other words, don't expect appreciation. Even for the very persons who you're trying to help, they will actually attack you sometimes. But you still have to be loving and concerned towards them. And we gave an example like Haridas Thakur, he's being attacked by these Muslims who were whipping him, and he was compassionate. Haridas Thakur was being attempted to lured by this prostitute, and he gave her Krishna consciousness. So many stories we have about Lord Nityananda being hit by Madai and then begging for their forgiveness for their Krishna consciousness. Brahmaji was criticized even by the gopis, the highest perfectional devotees of the Lord. The gopis were dissatisfied with the work of Brahmaji because Lord Brahma, as creator of this particular universe, created eyelids which obstructed their seeing Lord Krishna. Isn't that Yugayatam Nimishena Chakshusha Pravashayatam Shunyayatam Jagat Sarvam Govinda Vidahiname. The gopis loved Krishna so much that they couldn't bear even a blinking. We don't notice when we're blinking, do we? You know, I'm noticing now. But generally you don't notice. I mean, blinking occurs naturally. And for those of you who love someone else, you don't think, oh, this is horrible, I gotta blink, I can't see them. Even when you're looking at the deities, you don't notice you're blinking. But the gopis loved Krishna so much that in fact they prayed that they would have eyes like fish. Why do you think they wanted eyes like fish? Because fish don't have eyelids. They can't close their eyes. So this is how much they love. And they cursed Lord Brahma because he created these eyes with eyelids. They could not tolerate a moment's blinking of the eyes, for it kept them from seeing their beloved Lord Krishna. So what to speak of others who are naturally very critical of every action of a responsible man? Actually, let me give more examples. Let me finish with this paragraph. Similarly, Maharaj Yudhishthira had to cross over many difficult situations created by his enemies. And he proved to be the most perfect maintainer of mental equanimity. It means equal in all circumstances, in all critical circumstances. Therefore, the example of both grandfathers for maintaining equanimity of mind is quite fitting. So another example that comes to mind of equanimity of mind or being criticized by those who are trying to help is once upon a time, Daksha one of the Prajapatis, wanted to have a lot of children. That was his business. His family business was having babies. So he was very expert. He had 10,000 children one time. They were called the Haryashvas. A lot of kids. And he thought, I want my children to engage in the family business. What was the family business? Having babies. His family business. He was called Daksha. Actually, his name was Daksha because Daksha means expert. He's expert at having babies. So anyway, one wife too. So anyway, of course he was in the higher planets, so people could do things like this. So he sent his children out to prepare to get married. And in order to prepare to get married, they had to perform austerities. So they were performing austerities, and while they were performing austerities, Narada Muni comes. And Narada Muni says, basically, what are you doing these austerities for? And they say, well, to have kids. And Narada Muni says, it's not a good idea. You can become Krishna conscious with the same austerities. And they say, well, we got to follow our father. And Narada Muni said, do you know who your real father is? I mean, don't try that with children. That would be traumatic. If you said to little children, your real father is Krishna, that other guy is... No, who cares about it? Anyway, so what happened is Narada Muni convinced them and they all took sannyas. And then Daksha got a little upset and he decided, well, I can try again. So he had 1,000 kids the second time. And Narada Muni did the same thing. And he got so angry that he cursed Narada Muni. And he cursed Narada Muni in such a way that Narada Muni couldn't remain in one place for very long. So Narada Muni said, Jai Haribol. Because he liked to travel. And Prabhupada also said that the parents of his devotees who joined the movement were very upset that they joined the movement. This is in America. He says they cursed him. They cursed him to travel. And he said he's transferring the curse to people like me. So I got that curse now. So, anyway, so you see this happen quite often. The people are just like not at all feeling grateful for what you do for them, isn't it? Very little gratefulness in this world. But still we have to be trying our best to help them. Equanimity. Because it's not about us, it's about them. So that's the point. So, anyway, here's another point. Lord Shiva is a celebrated demigod who awards gifts to beggars. His name is therefore Ashutosh, or one who is pleased very easily. He is also called the Bhutanath, or the Lord of the common folk. Also means the Lord of the ghosts. So who are mainly attached to him because of his munificent gifts, even without consideration of the after effects. Ravana was very attached to Lord Shiva. And by easily pleasing him, Ravana became so powerful that he wanted to challenge the authority of Lord Ram. Of course, Ravana was never helped by Lord Shiva when he fought with Ram, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Lord of Lord Shiva. To Vrikasura, Lord Shiva awarded a benediction, which was not only awkward, but disturbing. Vrikasura became overpowered by the grace of Lord Shiva to vanish anyone's head, simply by touching him. Although this was awarded by Lord Shiva, the cunning fellow wanted to make an experiment of the power by touching the head of Lord Shiva. Thus the Lord had to take shelter of Vishnu to save himself from this trouble, and the Lord Vishnu by his illusory potency, asked Vrikasura to make an experiment with his own head. The fellow did it and was finished himself. And so the world was saved from all sorts of trouble by such a cunning beggar of the demigods. The excellent point is that Lord Shiva never denies anyone any sort of gift. He is therefore the most generous, although sometimes some kind of mistake is made. So this is another quality, the quality of compassion, and therefore Lord Shiva is known as Vaishnavanam Yatha Shambhu. He's the best Vaishnava because he's very compassionate and he helps the lowest class of people. Just like if you were to go into Lord Shiva's ashram, brahmacharya ashram, it'd be filled with bhutas, pretas, pisachas, kitcheries, not kitchery. I know you all like kitchery, but ketchery, which means ladies who ride on trees that have been pulled out of the ground. That's why sometimes you see witches are depicted riding on a broom. You ever seen that? That comes from the Vedas, because it wasn't brooms they were riding on, it was trees. Because the tree would be pulled out with the roots, and it would look like a broom. Yeah, it's true. And like Putana she was such a person like this. So Lord Shiva's ashram is a frightening ashram. It's filled with ghosts, goblins, witches. And that's mercy, isn't it? Normally we're very careful who joins the Krishna conscious movement. We've just been discussing our GBC conference about having people given psychological tests before they join. Right? We're not so compassionate about like Lord Shiva. But Lord Shiva doesn't give any tests. Okay, join. Everybody can join. And so he's known as the most compassionate. And that means some mistakes. Also, another thing he does, he tries to give some of his ghosts and witches and everything a human birth. So the way he does that, he travels around at different times with his associates, especially the dawn and the dusk. And when people are not engaged in marriage life, in sex life, in the proper consciousness, then he puts the ghost or goblin or witch into the mother's womb. Wow. That's mentioned in the Bhagavatam, in the story of Kashyapa and Diti. Kashyapa and Diti, the same story, the 7th canto, where we have Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha being born. Like Diti's, she's very lusty, and she's pulling on Kashyapa's dhoti. It's true. The story is there in Bhagavatam. And Kashyapa said, this time Lord Shiva is going around with all of his associates. And you're going to have one of his associates as your kid. So that's why we sometimes see people who are quite demoniac, like that being born in this world. So anyway, so Lord Shiva is quite compassionate, and that's why he's called the greatest Vaishnava. So the greatest Vaishnava is known by the quality of compassion and tolerance. He's very tolerant. Of course, he does get angry really easy. That's Ashutosh. Just like in the story of the sacrifice that was being done by Daksha. Again, we're talking about Daksha. He was doing the sacrifice, and he walks into the sacrifice to perform the sacrifice. Everyone stands up, except for Lord Shiva. Stories in the Bhagavatam. Everyone stands up, and he gets really angry at Lord Shiva, offends Lord Shiva. And eventually there's a big fight because Lord Shiva's wife, Sati Parvati, becomes so upset that her father, because she goes back later on, her father's offending her husband, she burns herself up in a sacred fire. And then Lord Shiva gets angry at that point, and he sends this big, not exactly a demon, big monster, Virabhadra, to actually decapitate Daksha, to cut his head off in what we call a guillotine. A guillotine is like something they used to use in Europe to cut people's heads off when they had a coup. Their coups were not as nice as your coups here. Here you're nice, coup, and then until you become prime minister in the future. It's not a problem. But there, when they had a coup in France, the French Revolution we're talking about, they would have these guillotines, which was like a big blade that would just like cut off the leaders' heads. So, quite disgusting, isn't it? So that's called a coup d'etat. So that's where actually the word coup actually comes from French, from the expression coup d'état. Coup d'état means that a revolution of the state, created a revolution. So anyway, Lord Shiva's associate used this particular mechanism to cut off the head of Daksha. And Daksha was given a goat head. Very embarrassing. I don't know if you've ever seen a goat. Of course you've all seen goats. Little mustaches on, And so, that's Lord Shiva's anger. And later on he became happy. And he attended the next sacrifice that Daksha performed. So you see Ashutosh. Very generous and very easy to be pleased. So, next one is Rama, means the goddess of fortune. And her shelter is Lord Vishnu. Lord Vishnu is the maintainer of all living beings. There are innumerable living beings, but not only on the surface of this planet, but also in all other hundreds of thousands of planets. All of them are provided with all necessities of life for the progressive march towards the end of self-realization. But on the path of sense gratification, they are put into difficulty by the agency of Maya, the illusory energy, and to travel the path of a false plan of economic development. Such economic development is never successful because it is illusory. Those men are always after the mercy of the illusory goddess of fortune, but they do not know that the goddess of fortune can live only under the protection of Vishnu. Without Vishnu, the goddess of fortune is an illusion. We should therefore seek the protection of Vishnu instead of directly seeking the protection of the goddess of fortune. It's for those of you who do the Lakshmi Puja. I know on the Lakshmi Puja day you're not supposed to spend money, right? Or give anyone money, because that means the rest of the day, the rest of the year it'll go out of the house. Isn't that right? So you don't even give money to Krishna on that day. So the sannyasis don't visit anyone's home on that day. So Vishnu and the devotees of Vishnu can give protection to all, and because Maharaj Parikshit was himself protected by Vishnu, it was completely possible for him to give complete protection to all who wanted to live under his rule. So another thing about Lakshmi here. Lakshmi is called Chanchala. It's another name for Lakshmi. Chanchala means flickering. Like a light sometimes, like a candle is flickering. So she's here, she's there, and therefore, because she's Chanchala, if you want Lakshmi without Vishnu, you get Maya Lakshmi. Now, Maya Lakshmi is an expansion of Lakshmi, and she's known as Durga. Now you may say, "So nice, I'm worshiping Durga." Well, the interesting thing about Durga is that she has a trident, Trishula. And that trident, when you get her, she's riding on a tigress, and she's piercing you with it. And this trident represents the threefold miseries: Adhyatmic, Adhibodic, and Adhidaivik. Miseries from the body and mind, miseries from other living entities, miseries from the material energy in general. You know, sometimes your mind is bothering you, sometimes your pain in the body is bothering you, sometimes the other devotees are bothering you, from the children, sometimes your mother and father are bothering you. You know, it's too much. And sometimes it's too hot, sometimes it's too cold, sometimes it's rainy. So you really become miserable. And the typical example that Prabhupada gives in this regard is Ravan. Because Ravan wanted Lakshmi, Sita Devi. But he didn't want Ram. So therefore he got Durga and he got in trouble because of that. And actually, literally, he did get Maya Lakshmi, because before he so-called kidnapped Sita Devi, we find that Ram exchanged the real Sita with Maya Sita, or Chaya Sita. So he really got Durga. And because he got Durga, he ended up in trouble. So this is a lesson for all of you too, that if you worship Durga without Lord Shiva, or Lakshmi without Narayan, you're going to suffer. So you always have to have, if you worship Lord Shiva, it's fine, but you have Durga there too. I mean, if you worship Durga, it's fine, you have Lord Shiva there. And you have to worship them as devotees. Lakshmi's mood is very, very subservient to the Lord. She's always thinking, she's actually serving the Lord in awe and reverence. It's really interesting. Whereas Srimati Radharani serves Krishna in the mood of man, sometimes getting angry at Krishna. But Lakshmi never gets angry at Narayan. So this is because she's always taking shelter of Narayan. Anyway, so these are some of the qualities. These are some of the qualities of Parikshit Maharaj that are being predicted in this particular verse. And let's see, what else can I say about this? And also, here's an important point. If we want to attain these qualities, the method given in the Vedic literatures, the Srimad Bhagavatam, is Yasyasti Bhagavati Bhagavati Kinchana Savarganash Tatra Samasate Sara Harabhatasya Kutoma Hadguna Manorite Nasati Davato Bahi. And that verse states that good qualities like this arise in those who are Krishna conscious. Yasyasti Bhakti Bhagavati Kinchana. If you have devotion for Krishna, then all the good qualities automatically are manifest. Like sometimes we hear about the qualities of a Vaishnava. And someone who is not Krishna conscious, Harabha Bhaktasha Kutom Ahadguna Manorite Nasati Davato Bahi, that his or her so-called good qualities are actually not good qualities. What do I mean by that? That several reasons for that. You know, we say that someone who is not devoted to God has no good qualities. The reason for that is because someone who is not devoted to God is under the three modes of material nature. And therefore, according to the Gita, the three modes of nature are continually in what we call flux, or changing. Sometimes the mode of goodness is prominent, defeating passion and ignorance. Sometimes passion is prominent, defeating goodness and ignorance. And sometimes ignorance is prominent, defeating goodness and passion. So it's not stable. Just like you see someone who is extremely kind, and the next minute he'll become like Ravan, right? Because he's being controlled by the modes of nature. As Krishna says in the Gita, everyone is forced to act helplessly according to the modes of material nature. Another reason that we say that someone who's not Krishna conscious cannot exhibit good qualities is because the motivation for his or her exhibition of qualities is self-centered. In other words, I'm being kind to you because it makes me feel better. Because you'll, like a doctor nowadays, or a nurse, because they get paid. If they didn't get paid, nobody would go through medical school, right? But in the traditional Indian system, the doctors did not charge. People gave them charity, but they were Brahmins. But nowadays, people do things for money. Take away the money, they don't do anything. Or if you give them a lot of money, they won't do anything. Because they can live nicely. Like if people are given money by the government, we see that, or given money by their parents, inheritance, then they end up doing nothing in life. So people's motivation is like that. So a devotee's motivation is simply pure compassion. Hara dukkha dukhi. You're talking here about a compassion of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is compassionate even to the ghosts and demons and everybody like that because he loves them. They can't do anything for him. Lord Chaitanya is compassionate to all of us. Lord Nityananda, why? What can we do for Lord Chaitanya? Nothing. There's nothing we can do for him. In the sense of he needs us. He doesn't need us. I mean, we can do something for him, but he doesn't need that. Whereas we need so many things. Like someone cooks nicely for me, I bless them. Here's my cook. Anyway. Like Zaki cooks nicely. I need to eat. Ashivad. If someone cooks badly, then we take our Brahman thread out. No, I don't do that. But I'm just giving an example. I don't do those things. But someone who is motivated, so-called showing good qualities, it's based on personal interest. Whereas Lord Nityananda, Lord Chaitanya, Lord Shiva, Srila Prabhupada, everything they did was out of pure, unmotivated compassion. And that's pure devotional service. Okay, so we've described some of the qualities of Parikshit Maharaj and how to achieve those qualities. Any questions or comments? Yes, Rupanuga. Why do we have the propensity to what? Well, because when we criticize others, first of all, we feel better about ourselves. You push someone else down, then it puts you in a higher position. And you're in the position of judging people. Actually, even in the Bible it says, judge not, lest ye be judged. And also, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, I'm criticizing you because I myself am pockmarked with the same faults. And so actually when we criticize someone unnecessarily, I mean, criticism is not prohibited if we can help someone, satya prihitam, being truthful, pleasing, and beneficial towards someone, then sometimes in private we can criticize their actions, not criticize them, to help them somehow or other. But the reason we are feeling this envy is because we want what someone else has. We want to put someone down, and ultimately we're envious of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I mean, that's the reason. So, yeah, we should understand that we see a fault in others and we feel this burning sensation in our hearts at the same time. It's our problem, not their problem, isn't it? I mean, just think about what you feel when you feel envious or critical of someone. You feel this, it's a physical sensation, isn't it? It's like a tightening. You ever experienced that? No, you're not envious. So anyways, it's like, you can see the eye is narrow. You ever notice that on people? And that's when you feel envious, that's what happens. And it's about you. You got problems. So, yeah, it makes us feel better about ourselves. We want what someone else has. Like I said, sometimes you can actually help someone by pointing out what they're doing wrong, obviously. That's not envy. That's compassion. So that's what. It's just like this feeling that I'm better than you. You feel real insecure because you yourself have these problems. Someone's better than you. What do you do if a doctor is better than you? What? What did he say? Learn from him. That's good. You don't criticize him, do you? That's good. That's what we should do. And serve him. Well, not necessarily a doctor. Serve devotees. So, any other questions or comments? Yes? Yeah. Real Sita was with Agni Dev, the fire god. That's described in the Valmiki Ramayana. The real Sita was taken by Agni Dev and kept safe. And therefore, when Lakshman ignited that fire and Maya Sita entered, Agni Dev was present and he brought back the real Sita. But the Maya Sita did not get burnt either. She's, in addition to being Durga, she's also considered a Bhumi. And she fell in love with Ram. And she wanted to marry Ram. There was a whole conflict that went on there. She said, I may be Maya Sita, but I love you, Ram. I want to marry you. And Ram said, there's a problem, Ekapatni Vrata. And Ram said, okay, because I am Padita Pavana, I will marry you in some future incarnation. So I'll tell the story real quickly. So in the future, Vishnu, who was with Lakshmi in the spiritual world, and his sage, Brigamuni, kicked Lord Vishnu in the chest. And Vishnu apologized. Lord Vishnu apologized. Sorry for the hard chest. That's tolerance, isn't it? What do you do if someone kicks you in the chest? I'm sorry my chest was too hard for you. Is your foot all right? You massage the guy's foot. So that's what it's a story in the Krishna book, actually. At 10 Canto Srimad Bhagavatam. So then Lord Vishnu, he was tolerant, but Lakshmi got really upset. How can you treat my husband like that? Also, she cursed Brahmins at that point, that they wouldn't be too rich. So, and then she got so upset, she said, you're too tolerant. I'm going, I'm leaving. So Lakshmi left Lord Vishnu. So Lord Vishnu, this is a pastime, because he has other Lakshmis, but Lord Vishnu became without money. So even Lord Vishnu aggravated Lakshmi, so you have to be careful. So what happened is that Lord Vishnu, he came down to the earth planet because that's where Lakshmi was. And he was looking for Lakshmi everywhere. Where is my Lakshmi? Where is my Lakshmi? And so, but he was a poor man. And so he was acting as a pastime. He never becomes poor. There's no such thing as Daridra in Narayana. But anyway, he was poor, and he was looking for Lakshmi, and as he's looking for Lakshmi, he finds this nice girl who he falls in love with. Not Lakshmi. who was previously the Maya Lakshmi in the Ram pastimes. And the problem is that she comes from a very rich family, and he's poor at this point. So what he does, he's still Lord Vishnu. You see, he has to borrow money at a high interest rate from Kuvera. You know, Kuvera is the treasurer of the demigods. You have something like 20%, 25% per month or something like that. I knew someone here in Fiji who lent money at 20% per month. I knew him. He's one of my good friends, actually. I never borrowed from him, don't worry. But anyway. So Kuvera was very high interest rate, and he was, anyway, so he borrowed, and then he needed some land, so he borrowed some land from another incarnation of his known as Varahadev. So anyway, so he had land, and so they get married. There's this nice Swayamvara, and, not Swayamvara, but marriage ceremony, and he's married to Maya Lakshmi. Okay, they're very happy. They're ready to go on their honeymoon. You know what a honeymoon is? No? He doesn't know. Honeymoon means a moon of honey. That means, anyway, I won't tell you what it means. It means sometimes you get so bewildered by the full moon. Anyway, so he goes on his honeymoon, gets ready to go, and he's going, very happy. He's wearing, the crown, just like we had a marriage here. So he's wearing this crown and everything, and he just is walking with his new wife, and then right in front of him is the real Lakshmi. He said, "Who is that girl with you?" And he doesn't say anything, he's scared. And she says, "He's my husband." And Lakshmi says, "He's my husband." And they have this argument back and forth. He's mine, he's mine. And the two ladies are fighting each other. And Lord Vishnu is getting really nervous because I tell you, men do not like to see women fighting each other. For you ladies, there's several things that men don't like: is crying, that freaks them out, and ladies fighting. So Lord Vishnu, the original male, Purusha, Adi Purusha, he doesn't like that. And so he basically transforms himself into a deity to get away from them. And they're fighting, and then they look around and they see that Lord Vishnu has transformed himself into the deity. And they think, "Oh my God, what happened to her husband?" And they said the only way we can join him is we also become deities. And so they manifested the deities of Venkateshwara, sometimes known as Balaji, in Tirumala. You've heard of it? Venkateshwara. And Shri and Bhu. Shri Devi, Shri is Lakshmi, Bhu Devi is Bhumi, or expansion of Lakshmi. So that's how the deities came to be at Tirumala, which is, Tirupati is the city at the bottom of the hill, Tirumala is where on the hill. And where Tirumala is situated is considered to be a mountain or a range of mountains that are considered to be the spine of Lord Vishnu. Really interesting. There's 7 mountains there. 7 mountains that are considered incarnations of Lord Vishnu. Okay, so that's the story of Maya Lakshmi. She gets to marry Ram, but in a future birth. I mean, just like the sages of Dandakaranya, they were identifying themselves as females. They had a female spiritual body. They had male external body. And they wanted to have that relationship with Lord Ram too. And Lord Ram said, "You have to take birth in a future incarnation." And they did. And they took birth as the Munichara gopis. who associated with Krishna when Krishna had his different rasa dances. Krishna had rasa dances with different groups of gopis. So, does that answer the question? Okay, I think we have to end now because we have a program midday and we have prasadam and we have all sorts of things happening today, especially initiation. Okay, on that happy note, all glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.